Welcome back to our UiPath learning session. And today we're going to cover module number 7. The module number 7 is all about the UiPath project planning and RE framework. In the project planning, we'll discuss about what kind of projects template we have available in a UiPath, how we should be able to create different kind of project in UiPath Studio itself. We'll discuss about advanced exception handling technique. We'll take example of try, catch, rethrow and all those things. And then we will see how we should be able to optimize the workflow using those advanced exception handling technique. Then we'll talk about the state machine and then we'll be talking about the RE framework. So that's what we are targeting for today, right? So let's quickly start discussing about the project planning first. How we can be able to plan a project in UiPath Studio. So as I said, the learning objective would be UiPath project layout, advanced exception handling, state machine and RE framework, right? What is the project layout and template? First thing, right? So basically in UiPath you should be able to create different kind of project, right? Say for example, some organization is building only attended bot, right? Or some organization is only building a background process, right? So in those scenario, what you need to do is you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? What you can do is use the template that is given by the UiPath because it saves your time. Many things, right? How to write a config file, how to read a config file, how to open an application, how to close an application, how to process the data. Those things are already built in. So all you need to do is you need to use any of the library template that is given by the UiPath and use it directly. Let's briefly talk about some of this project layout. Just to help you understand where these projects layouts can be used. The one that is really important to understand is a transactional process because that's where you should start working with. Transactional process is the basic template which contains flowchart and optimized for a basic automation processes. So if you are not going to complicate your stuff, you will start with transactional process, right? Which is based on flowchart and optimized for the basic automation. Then you have orchestration process. Orchestration process are long running workflow, right? They are basically a master project which supports multiple projects inside it, right? So you understand the concept of master and slave, or you can understand the concept of master project and various child processes. So one process is controlling other processes and usually that's long running in unattended environment or which requires human intervention. So if you want to create something which requires human intervention like UiPath, action center where something need to be validated by the user, will use a template called orchestration process. Then we have a concept of background processes. The background process is a template for creating a process that can run in a parallel on a same robot together where one foreground process is running. See the difference between foreground and background processes. So any processes which utilizes the UI is known as foreground process. Any process or any automation which do not requires a UI. Say for example, you are working with the system activities of Excel, right? You're trying to automate something which uses UiPath system activity. So they don't need to be in front of your eyes, right? They can run in the background. This will help us to optimize the license usage because by default, you should be able to run a background process and a foreground process at the same time on a same machine, right? For the reason that the background process do not use UI, background processes must not contain activities that requires user interaction. No click, no input, no mouse activities. Only activities like FTP, sending a file, sending an email, which can run in a background. So that's a basic template provided by the UiPath. Then we have a robotic enterprise framework, which is RE framework, we call it in a short. This is basically a project template based on a state machine. It's created to fit all the best practices regarding how you are going to log the data, how you are handling the exception, how you are handling the application initialization, application restore, application closing, resetting, retrying, using queues, and lot many other stuff. So this is the most important and this is the most advanced template that they have given, right? Recently, they have also come up with one other template which is called document understanding template, right? That will be used for a project where you need to work with invoices, where you need to work with PDF, where you work with document. So you should be able to use it without wasting time on this PPT. Let's quickly go to the UiPath Studio and see from where you should be able to utilize those, right? So all you need to do is click on new on this template, and there you should be able to see all the template that is given by the UiPath. Previously they are small in number, but now what UiPath has done is they have asked other people, third party as well, to publish their template, right? Like you can see the example, Internal Labs has published this template, right? Internal Lab is another third party company. Similarly, you will see there is a company called Mindtree. They have also published some of the this one, right? Mindtree has published a template for SAP cost creation. Mindtree has published a template for SAP material master data creation, vendor master creation, right? Similarly, Sumit Sharma, an individual, has published play and plug bot for release management, right? So you should be also able to publish your template, right? But I'll restrict you guys to use the template provided by the UiPath. I'll tell you why. Because if something changes in the underlying activities or libraries, these people may or may not provide you the update. So it will become tough for you to change the template from scratch point. But if you use the template which is provided by UiPath, every time they release a new project, they need to make sure that this template will work with a new addition. Say for example, you are using a template which is provided by Harshit Singh Advanced Framework in 21.10, right? Coming next year, when we have 2022 UiPath Studio release, right? This framework might work or may not work, right? So that's the reason you should use only template which is provided by the UiPath. And these are the templates. Basically, I was talking about the orchestrator process, RE framework, transactional process, and then we have another one which is the important one, is a trigger based automation. So that's basically works on events. If you press some key in a keyboard, a robot will be triggered, those kind of things. Then I was talking about this new one, document understanding process. So what they have done is they have released new business process which follow the best practices for the document understanding framework. So this we'll use in a next Saturday session, because we are going to discuss complete lesson on document understanding, how to process the invoices, how to read PDF, how to read the OCR and all those things. So we'll use this. But for the sake of simplicity, let's create a project using the transactional process. So the moment you click on it, it will say you which template you want to use, right? And it will give you the name, and let's simply you need to do is create. So it will be downloaded from their GitHub repository, and then this will come. So you will say what is the difference? So difference is here, they have already created a blocks. They have already created a blocks here. They have given a logical structure how your project should look like, right? So data input is here, and if you have data, you process something and go to the next data item. If data, process something. If data, process something. If data completed, you should end the process. So this is a basic workflow. So from this template, you should start working on. If you want to create your project, always start from this transactional process template, right? And in the data input, you should be able to see it's nothing but a blank, only saying new transactional flow. So all the logic to read the data you need to write here. You need to implement here. This is not a complete code. This is a skeleton. This is a template that you need to utilize. So data input has to be written here. Similarly, whatever the transaction processing you have to do, check for the business rule. If you need to change, UI, you should be able to write it here. Or if you want to raise a business exception, you should be able to raise a business exception and all those things. So this is basically a template given, nothing complete project, right? All right. So let's quickly move to the next point that we need to discuss. I hope I'm able to help you understand what is the different project layouts and what are the templates available in a UiPath Studio. This is what I was talking about. So transactional processes, flowchart optimized basic automation processes, which have four, logical grouping. One is a data input sequence, initiate and read your transaction data here. Then you have a flow decision, check if there is any data to process. Say for example, if you want to automate email based automation, so what you need to do in the data input, you need to read all the input and you check the count. If there are emails, if email is there, that means you need to perform something on that email. So you will perform all those tasks here. And then again, you go back here and check if there is any other email left out. Yes, perform task again. If there is no email left out, process should complete here, right? You should be able to modify this as per your need, include retry method and exception handling. Exception handling is not been given into this. That's the reason I say start with here. This is a basic template for your automation. All right. Let's quickly move to exception handling part. I'll give you a demo of this one, so you don't need to worry about it. So what is exception handling, right? Can anyone give me what is the difference between exception and error? Do you know the difference between exception and error? Anyone try to explain what is the difference between exception and error?
Error need to be fixed, but exception can be handled.
Okay.
So that the process can be executed.
All right. So let me tell you this. Okay. Sometime automation program may fail to execute, right? Sometime the same automation is working most of the time, but sometime it failed. Reason being internet is down or application is down or it's not able to read the data in a given wait window, right? To deal such scenario where we have an exception than what actually it was doing, we call them as exception handling, right? So in this section, we'll start with various types of exception handling method available in UiPath, the exception that you may encounter and how to deal with them. So that's what we are targeting to. We'll also learn about logging because that's an important topic covered in debugging. So we'll check whether the workflows are working properly or not and rectify any error, right? I have briefly discussed about different logging labels like info, debug, error, and warning, but we'll also see how we can utilize when we are debugging, how we should be able to set some of the properties while debugging, right? So that we'll talk about. Before we begin and look about the topic that is covered in this chapter that we are going to discuss, like what is exception handling, common exception, the way to handle them, login and tracking screenshot, debugging technique, collecting crash dumps and error reporting. So these are the things you need to know, right? So let's quickly move to the next slide and there we'll discuss about some of these features. So first talk about exception handling. How we should be able to handle exception. This is a general programming construct. This is general programming construct. It's not a new concept in UiPath. UiPath also support the concept of try, catch, throw, rethrow, and terminate workflow. Terminate workflow is a new because that's required when you want to stop the bot. Or the moment it encounters, if you want to stop the bot, terminate workflow can be used. Apart from that, try, catch, throw, and rethrow. This is available in most of the programming languages construct, and the definition remains same, right? So anytime we are automating something and we see that it could fail, right? Say for example, you want to read a data from Internet Explorer website, right? A website running on Internet Explorer, and you understand that application is not stable and sometime the page will not refresh and you are using a read activity. So what you can do is you can put that read activity into try and catch block, and in the catch section, based on your input, you should be able to print a log message or you should be able to try certain actions, right? And then we have also finally block. So we basically, when we write a try catch, there will be a finally block, right? And in the finally section, which is used to mention those activities which are performed in a try and catch are executed or not. If not executed, we can perform certain action, right? Let me give you another example. Okay. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to scrap some data from a website, right? So in the try block, I have written a code, okay, which will try to read the data. In the catch block, what I'll do is I'll try to catch the exception, if any, thrown by UiPath and print the log messages, right? But if we need to move to the next step, we need to perform certain action. Say for example, if application is not responding, we should be able to launch it again, or we should be able to navigate back to the different pages and start it over again, right? For next item to be completed. So in those scenario, all the actions which are required to reset your application to initial stage, right, or launch application will be going into a finally block. So we'll have try, catch, and finally, right? Whatever you want to test, you have to put that into try section. And if there is any error that occurs during the execution, you need to catch and handle them in the catch section. And then apart from the try and catch, we'll have a finally section which will be used to reset the setting for next item to work, right? So that's the way of try, catch, and finally block. Sometime you need to throw an error, in a certain way. You do not want a generic message to be thrown, right? You want a message thrown which should be understandable by human operator, right? One who is monitoring the pod or one who is supporting the pod, right? So in those scenario, what we can do is we can use a throw statement. And in the throw statement, we should be able to generate our own system or business exception. So we should be able to generate system exception, or you could say application exception, or we could say business exception, or any types of exception you should be able to generate. The benefit of throw is you should be able to use throw error during your workflow so that it can be thrown from anywhere. Otherwise, directly the execution will go into the catch block, right? So that's the beauty of the throw. Then what is a rethrow, right? Rethrow is nothing but when you use a concept of bubbling, right? Say for example, you have a workflow which contains main file, then A, then B, right? And you have designed a bot in such a way that exception handling has to happen on the main page, right? So if something goes wrong, what you need to do is from A or B workflow, you need to throw the exception, and in the catch block, you need to rethrow it. So that exception would be bubbled to the main page. So that's a concept of bubbling. Exception occurring at the child page has to be bubbled to the top or parent page so that they can be handled gracefully. So that's a concept of rethrow, right? How we should be able to use try, catch, and finally block. So let's take an example. We have try catch activity, which is a top container. Then we have a try block. Inside the try block, we have to drop the activity we want to perform. We have a catch block. Inside the catch activity, first we need to click add new catch and then click add on exception option, from which we have to select the type of exception. In most of the cases, or the most generic is system.exception is preferred. So you should be able to change the type of exception if you want to do so. And then we have a finally block will work regardless of whether the exception was successful or not. Suppose if you want to display a message to user notifying that process is completed, then also you should be able to put that into finally block, right? So it will be executed regardless of try and catch block exception handling steps. So that's how we need to do. So now we have reached to a point where we need to look at try catch blocks. Okay, so let me stop the presentation and go quickly to the UiPath Studio, and there I'll help you to explain how we should be able to handle those. All right, so let's quickly go to this. All right, so what we are trying to do here is we have a website. This is a website, okay, fakenamegenerator.com, and what we're trying to do here is we are trying to generate random 5-person detail, and we need to capture name, phone number, and email address. That's the code which is written here. So we are clicking on generate, getting the name, getting the phone number, and getting the email address. Once this data is collected, what we'll do, look at let's look at from the main. So in the main program, what we are doing, we are using a build data table. It's pretty simple. I have shown you in the previous example. We have used a while loop because most of the time I have used for loop. So this time I wanted to display you how we should be able to use a while loop. Counter is less than 6. That means this will run 5 times. Okay. Then in the sequence, what we have done, we have used the workflow which is written here to use the concept of modularize, right? So the application is, I mean, the workflow is modularized. So the module which is capable of reading a data is kept separately and that invoked inside this, right? And in the edit argument, we have these many, details coming from there. So once this detail will be received here, we'll create a add data row, which is nothing but this name, phone number, and email, and then we'll increase the counter. So it will keep running for the 5 times. And then at the end, when everything is done, it will create a file and save the data into this Excel file. Okay. So data will be saved like this one. So you have name, you have phone number, and you have email. All right. Any doubt in this activity workflow before I move to the concept of building try catch statement for this? Any doubt here in this workflow example?
Add data row.
So basically what we have done, we have created a build data table here, right? And this build data table is blank. So we have created a data table, name, phone number, and email, right? And then we need to add a row into it. Every time you want to add a row, you need to use this one. So I have explained you. This is what you need to provide is a data table name and then whatever the columns you need to add. So this is an array. You should be able to use in argument as an object, which is an array of string in this case. So basically this text input as array of object, and object here is a string. So it should be able to create a new row into data table and it will be saved. Okay. So let me quickly run this. Okay. And I have this web page here. So I don't know if this page will come in front here on this screen or it will go on another screen, but let me quickly run it. Okay. So it's running. So you can see it's running. It has completed and it has, written the data into this file. Okay. Now let's close this one. What will happen while this bot is reading the data from this, web page and I close the Internet Explorer, or, something went wrong and Internet Explorer is not reading. So this time what I'll do is, while the bot is reading the data, I'll close the Internet Explorer. Okay. And see how this, automation will behave. Okay. So let's quickly run this and I'll close this. So it has error. So bot has stopped abruptly. Bot has stopped abruptly and it has lost the data which is, already captured as well, right? Say for example, it was able to capture the data in first 2 instances, right? And it was running for the 3rd time, and then it run into an issue where it is not able to read a text from, a selector. It has stopped the execution there. So you have also lost the data, right? So that's the reason we should design a workflow in such a way that if we think something will go wrong, we'll put into try and catch block, right? And in the catch block, we'll handle it, right? And then we'll move to the next step for bot to run. So for this example, what could be our way to handle it, right? How we should be able to solve this problem if something goes wrong like this, right? So first thing that we need to do is we need to put a try catch block where we can put a try catch block here as well, or we can straight away put a try catch block here. right? So if something goes wrong, it will go into the catch block. And then what we will do is in the finally block, we'll put a steps so that application can be launched automatically if something goes wrong, right? So let me show you the example which is complete now. I have created two different workflows so that I can show you the differences between those two to understand it more clearly. Otherwise, I could be able to change in a same. So see what is the difference here? I have put this invoke method here in try and catch block. Try and catch block. And the catch, what I have done is I have added a selector not found exception and saying Internet Explorer was closed. It will now open to continue the workflow execution. But there is no method to launch the application Internet Explorer. That method is written in finally. So in finally, we are checking if the browser is there or not. So if browser is false, what I do is I'll open a browser. That's it. Right? Any doubt here, guys? This is really important concept. I am trying to, explain you guys. And if you're able to understand it, you will be able to handle any type of exception handling. Any doubt here? You got the idea why I have kept like this, right? How it would look different. So let's look at this. Here it is no try and catch block here, right? So if I do side by side like this, so I don't think I'll be able to do more than this. So sorry, it has become, so you can see it here, right? See the difference, right? You got my point? Any doubt here? So I have put this block into try and catch. Okay, so let's close this. We don't need this. And now what I'll do is, as of now, Internet Explorer is not open. So when I run it first time, what it will do, it will come here and a pop-up message will be displayed, right? Let's put a log message as well, just to showcase how it can be done. So we'll put a log message here, field here, and we'll say in the header saying bot has failed due to what? Bot has failed due to exception dot message. You should be able to print a dynamic message here, and then bot will send this pop-up message. I'll click OK, and then when I click OK, it will come here and launch the browser, and for the next turn it should be able to print catch the data from here. So let's quickly run it. Or do you want me to put a debug? Other thing that we need to understand here is there are few other options like here. So you should be able to control the speed of execution. As of now, sometime your application UiPath bot is working too fast. So you should be able to control the speed from here. So when you click once, it will become 1/4 of the speed. If you click twice, it will become half the speed, and then 3/4, and then as it should execute. Then there is another concept which is called highlight element. So before clicking any button or before reading the test, it will highlight the element which need to be, completed. So this option can be used. And then there is a concept of called remote debugging that I'll explain you later. This is recently introduced in UiPath 21.10. We have a picture-in-picture concept where you should be able to run an automation into a separate small window, right? Like you play a YouTube in a small window on your machine. Similarly, we should be able to run our automation in picture-in-picture concept. But that's a pretty much experimental feature. It's still not, pretty much useful. Sometimes it works, sometimes it asks for a password multiple times and all those things. So it is not pretty much stable. But try to understand how you should be able to use this. So highlight element is one when you need to highlight the element on UI during the execution, and then you should be able to control the speed of a bot. So let's control the speed of bot slowly, and this time we have done it. So now debug the file. So it will run slow this time. We'll go here and it will not be able to attach the browser. So it will wait for 30 seconds because that's a default time out for any selector issue has to happen. So it will wait for 30 seconds and then it will print a log message saying that selector not identified or selector not found, and then it will move to the next step, right? It has printed the error and now a pop-up message is here. So you can see that it has printed message bot has failed due to cannot find UI element corresponding to the selector title generator random name fake name generator. So basically that's a selector for the Internet Explorer page. Now this is a message box. The moment I'll click, what it will do, it will go into the finally block and then it will launch the Internet Explorer. So let's press OK. Now it has come here. You can see in the finally sequence. It's again checking if Internet Explorer is there. It's not there. So it has launched the Internet Explorer, right? You can see it here. And now it will continue to work for the next case. You can see the highlighting is working. So whatever the text it has need to read, it's highlighting that into a red circle. I mean red square, right? It will click on generate button again and capture the next data. I have controlled the speed here. I am running this into slow mode so that you should be able to see what actually happening on the screen. Otherwise it will run too fast. So now it has completed the execution. The bot will stop. I have not used any close, once the automation complete, I should close Internet Explorer here, but I have not done willingly. Okay, now let's look at the data. So you should be able to see 4 records are captured and it is not able to capture the record in a first instance, right? Right? So it is not able to do it here, and then it's able to complete the task 4 times, not the first time. But this is not a good way to report it, right? Ideally, we should have written column here, and then we should have said failure saying what was not able to launch the application. And for this, we should have said success, 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 right? How you should be able to do that? So you need to move this add row method from here in the catch block as well, and increment the here as well based on if condition, because as of now it's coming as blank, right? So we need to check if there is exception, do this, if not exception, do this. So you should be able to do that, and then Excel will be populated with the exception error message using the keyword exception dot message that we use here. So instead of writing name and all those things, we should be able to populate it, right? Would you be able to do it, or should I do it? Guys, you all with me, able to understand this? Please feel free to ask if you have any doubt.
Can you do it, Satya?
Yeah. Any doubt here? Any other doubt? I'll do that. That's not a problem. Any doubt? Any other doubt? You're not able to understand something here in this workflow?
Can you repeat that workflow again?
Okay. This workflow is pretty simple. All what I'm doing here is I have initialized a data table which contains 3 columns: name, phone number, and email. Okay. Then we have put a while loop so that we can capture the data 5 times. So we have put a while loop counter initialized with, sorry. So counter initialized with 1, right? Till it is less than 6. So it will run 5 times. Okay. Then what we have done, we have used another workflow, a modular workflow. What it will does is it will go to this website, click on generate, and new person detail will be created. Then it will read this name, it will read the phone number from here, and it will read this email address field from here. And these 3 details will be added as data into data row when they are coming here. Okay. In the data row field, you can see these all variables are coming here, and data will be stored, and the counter will be incremented. So counter will become 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. Next time it will read the data, and it will go so on and so on till this condition become false, right? So this is how it should look like. This is how it would look like. So, and then once that is completed, at the end we'll create a Excel file. File name is people dot, I have given the name here using a default file name, and then it will write the data what we have into data table. Okay. Any doubt? No doubt. So let's quickly modify this to add the steps. When there is a failure, it has to also be written into the Excel file. So what we need to do is, here we can do it here, or we can do it here as well, right? So what we can do, we can add a if statement here, if statement, and in the if statement we could put name let's put it name. So when is right, when it is empty, what I'll do is paste it here, and here what we will do is we'll put, instead of name, we'll put error. Okay, got my point? So now what will happen if something goes wrong? When something goes wrong, data will not be returned. This will be null or blank. Okay, and we'll check here if the name is null or blank. So in that case, we'll put that as name as error, and this would be a blank, right? And if it is not null or not empty, it will add the data. Okay, got my point? Any doubt here? So let's save this first, and then we have to close this browser, because when it will run, now I'll go to debug and increase the speed so that you don't need to worry about the speed. Now run it. A pop-up message has appeared. It's asking me to click OK. So I'll click OK, and then Internet Explorer will be opened, and then it will start writing it. I have changed the speed this time, so it looks more faster, but I have not stopped highlighting the element. So it's still highlighting the element. Oh, file was already open, so it was not able to write it. So what you can do is we need to close the file first. Or what you can do is we can also delete this, and then in the design tab, let's run it. Somebody stopped sharing. Are you able to see my screen? Or somebody tried to, it looks like somebody tried to share his screen. Just hold for a second. I need to present it again. You're able to see my screen, right? It's back.
Yes, Satish, we can see that's right.
Yeah, somehow it got disconnected. So what I was saying is, the file was not ready that time. It's so what I do is I'll delete this file. It is open into the browser, so that's the reason bot was not able to complete it, and we don't have exception handling for it. So I'll delete this, refresh it, so no file is there, right? And then I will also close the Internet Explorer so that it will go into the exception workflow, and then it will complete. So it has started running now. Pop-up message has appeared. It is able to print the log message. Now click OK. Web page will come and see the difference of speed between the debug and final mode. And now you should be able to see the first line. It's printing error. That's the change we have done, right? We could have added more columns like printing the exception.message and all those things, but I just wanted to tell you how you should be able to handle the exception handling, and I hope you got to know how it can be done. Any doubt here? Any other doubt before I move to the next topic for today? All good? You able to understand the try catch mechanism, handling using the finally block, reporting of the exception handling, right? All right. So I'll save this because I need to send this file to you guys so that you can experiment it. I'll close this. I'll close this window as well, and I'll go back to the presentation. So I have completed the demo. Now let's talk about some of the common exceptions and ways to handle them, right? This is really, really important. And this is all of these are interview questions. So if you go for interview, they'll ask you, what is the common exception that you encounter in UiPath? Why that happened? How you should be able to solve those? So these are the 5 type of exceptions. Basically, we have written 4, but one is included. So I'll tell you 5 exception that happens mostly. The first exception that you will see more often is a selector not found or UI element not found, right? This happens mostly due to the selector that we have captured during the development are breaking. We have seen an example where RPA developer has captured a selector which contains dynamic URL, right? It contains a keyword dev, UAT, and production, right? So in dev, it is a URL is dev, in UAT, URL is UAT, and production in URL is prod. But they have captured the URL which contains the dev, and when it moves to the production, the bot will fail. Similarly, I have seen an example where people has captured some of the dynamic attribute like IDX, right? CSS selectors. Those might fail into different environment. So you need to be careful on your selectors. And if you are following the best practices for the selector, you will not face this issue. Sometimes it will also happen that application is behaving differently due to the resolution. So you need to take care of the resolution as well on a different system. That happens mostly when you are working with the image controls or capturing a button as an image or capturing a text as an image and all those kind of things. And that's the exception number 2, right? So you'll find a common exception called image not found. Exception type would be UiPath.co.image operation exception, image not found. The main reason of these kinds of issues are when you run a job from orchestrator, it connects your bot machine or your runtime robot with a different screen resolution as compared to the resolution screen that you have worked on your laptop. So what are the ways to fix it? One way is to fix it. Always synchronize your environment resolution setting. So in dev, the resolution should be fixed. In UAT machine, resolution should be fixed, and prod, your resolution should be fixed. Or you can try your automation on different resolution screens so that to ascertain that it will work on a different resolution screens as well. The third thing that you could do is you can go to the UiPath Studio, and there you should UiPath Orchestrator, and there you should be able to control the resolution setting. Okay, so I'll showcase you how you should be able to do it. So for this, what you need to do is you need to go to the orchestrator. Okay, and then go to tenants, and then you have manage accesses, and then you have users, edit, and then you click on here. So we have this robot setting, optional. So what you need to do is either you build a automation in an environment where you have same setting across the environment, or if you want to run your bot on certain level of resolution, you need to fix it from here. So you should be able to type like I had to run this bot on 9020, sorry, on HD it should be 1920 into 120 and depth should be 32 bits. So you should be able to change the resolution setting from this page, from the robot setting. And how you should be able to access this? So you need to go on tenant on which you are working. Then you need to go to the manage access. You need to select the user which have robot, roles assigned, right? So this is the user I'm using for my local machine to work. And there you need to click on the robot setting here and you need to set the details. Then there are few other options as well, like logging label. So you should be able to change the logging label and all those things, but by default they are information, so we don't need to change it. These are by default good, but this will be useful when you are running an automation which contains image selector, right? This is really useful. Or any applications which behave differently on different resolution. So you need to take care of these settings. All right. So that's a one way to handle this issue. Then you will find a common issue called object reference not set to the instance of an object. We have seen this issue just a couple of minutes back, right? When the Excel application was not closed, it's trying to read a file and it said that object reference not to set the instance of object. Usually happens when there is a null reference, right? Say for example, you want to print a variable value and there is no value into it, or it has not been initialized or assigned some value, then system.null reference exception will be raised. This usually occurs when you forget to assign some value or it has been overwritten by different workflow or a different component. So you need to take care and you should check is null, is empty, right? Those kind of construct in your workflow for this issue not to occur. Then we have the activity timeout exceeded issue. This is also one of the common issue that happens when you have UiPath core element is not identified and it's not able to identify the element in a given default 30-second. So there are two options. What you can do is you can change the setting globally. Globally, when I say that, what you need to do, you need to go here, right? And in the design, this is the 30-second settings, right? Timeout settings, there will be also a setting for, hold on, this one. No, not this one. So there is also a setting. This is not this one. I've seen somewhere you should be able to change it. If not from here, you should be also able to change it from here as well. So we have an option of project settings as well. And the project settings in UI Automation Classic, you should be able to set these values here. So see these values, default values. You should be able to change these default values. How much delay would be required for desktop based application, SAP based application, and all those things. By default, they are 30 seconds. So you should, if you want to change, you should be able to change it directly here. If you want to change for a particular item, a particular selector, right? So you should be able to change from the properties window of that particular selector as well. So you have to be careful about this. Sometimes, mostly in legacy system where a navigation from one screen to other screen takes a time, right? Say for example, it takes 1 minute or more than 1 minute for that screen to appear, right? So in those cases, this activity default time will not work. So you need to modify that. So you should be able to change that default 30 seconds to somewhere around 60 seconds or 1 minute, and then you will not face this issue, activity timeout. Detail of handling of these common issues are documented in much detail on our blog page. So if you open this blog page, you will see how to handle these common scenarios completely. What can be done, what will happen. So you should be able to, you can read this blog information and there you should be able to identify some of these common issue. The fifth common issue that I was talking about is issue with saving a download file, right? It usually happens when there is a setting for the download is different in Chrome. So for that, what you need to do is you need to go to the settings, right? And here you can go to the advanced, okay, and then click on download. So by default, it is saving to this location, right? Instead of saving this to this location, what you can do is you can toggle this, checkbox so that it can ask for where the file has to be saved. So it will ask you for file has to be saved to which locations, right? Open certain file types automatically after downloading. So you need to also clear this. You do not want your PDF to be open the moment it gets downloaded because that may break your automation. So you need to take care of these Chrome settings, right? So this is the fifth common issue that we see in all type of automation. Any doubt in these types of exception that can occur in your automation, or you are not able to understand it properly? All good here? Should I move to next point? Guys, I really want you guys to be vocal. I mean, please just speak up. Yeah, I mean, otherwise it feels like that I am only speaking and I don't know if you are listening music or doing what in the background, right? So please feel free to speak. Feel free to ask. Yeah. All right. So next step or next thing that we need to understand is logging mechanism. How logging works in UiPath Studio, right? So I have explained you about the logging label. So we are already using info, we are already using warning, we are already using error, but there are few others like your woes and trace, right? Basically, these are, logging labels on the basis of which you should be able to segregate the logs in the UiPath orchestrator, or you should be able to display the visualization using the log data on different tool, right? For client login in UiPath, there is a nlog configuration file which makes it easy and flexible for us to integrate it with database servers or server or any other nlog target supported. So what are the nlog target supports are like Elasticsearch, like Splunk, right? Or any log aggregator which supports nlog format, right? They can be used to extract the log information from UiPath and put into onto different server. And once they are put onto different server, you should be able to create data visualization on top of your log messages to identify the ROI of a bot. Say for example, how many items has been completed today in last 1 hour. You should be able to create by looking at the log message if you have put the milestone logs in your workflow, otherwise not, right? By default, these logs are saved into your local app UiPath logs directory. All logs are generated by the execution are sent to the server and other logs are not sent. Each log has a log label which refers how this message has to be sent to the UiPath orchestrator. And there is a heartbeat mechanism. Robot service is running on your UiPath client machine, which sends a heartbeat every configured second to your UiPath orchestrator. Somehow, if your UiPath orchestrator is not connected to the UiPath Studio, right, and you have executed something on your machine on the basis of the setting in the file, those log messages can be synced later as well. That all depends on configuration of nlog targets. Logging levels refer to the type of security written in a log file. So sometimes we also need to process the audit information, right? So in those scenario, what you can do is, for certain activities, you should be able to make that activity as private. You should be able to make that activity as private. Let's take an example of this one. So the moment you make that activity as private, the information will not be sent in a log message and it will not be recorded. Usually when you have PII data or data which contains financial transactions, right, or a personal information, in those scenario we need to use this. But in most of the cases, we avoid putting the PII information into the log file because that's a audit issue, right? We can't print that because it will be exposed to people who do not have access to the system, right? Business user has access to the system, but as a RP developer, you don't need to know how much money is in their loan account, right? So in those scenario, we should be, controlling those things using this two approach. One is not logging the personal information into the log message, and then if it is highly necessary to do that, use the private methods, right? Let's quickly look at where the logs are. So when you go into debug, you click on the open logs, it will open this folder, which is app data local folder UiPath. You can see for today, there are different logs are generated, right? So we have a execution log. This is the log which will be sent to the UiPath orchestrator, right? So it will contains date and time, right? Sorry, this is not a data time, it is some different unique number. Then you have label, then you have message, right? Then you have log type, timestamp, and then unique print number, on which machine it was executed, what is the machine name, which file has generated that log, is it is initiated by Studio or it is initiated by executor. Those kind of information will be stored here, right? This information can be also accessed from the orchestrator. So if you go to the orchestrator, go to the process, when you go to the jobs, right, say here is the jobs, and from the job, we don't have any jobs today, so you should be able to see this, all this information. We are using a try catch final, right? So bot has failed. This is the example that we are running today. So you can see the labels are different here, timestamps are different, process is different. You should be able to filter this and you should be able to modify the columns as well. So what all columns you want to see. So if you do not want to say host identity and process, you should be able to filter this, right? And then you should be able to filter on the basis of if it is of last hour, only error messages, those kind of information. And you should be also able to export this into CSV file when you click here. But this is the same message, this is the same file, right? This is the same information which is kept into this. Here we have more information, right? So sometime this log message will not work, and when you are working with UiPath technical team, when you have raised an issue to UiPath support team, they will ask you to provide these logs. So you should be able to know where these logs are. So basically they are stored in app data, local, UiPath and logs, and you need to bundle this log and send them to UiPath for their analysis. Okay, got my point? And what are the different types of logs are available? So you can see execution log, then project log, analyzer log, studio log, right? And then this is for computer vision. And then if you are using, AI Center and document understanding, you will see other logs as well. So don't worry about it. UiPath team will tell what kind of log they need to know. But you should know the logging at the folder are much higher, and it contains more information than what you can see on orchestrator, right? But as a developer, you won't have access to these folder location, because that will be on the machine where the bot is running. So there will be a support team. You need to request them to provide a log, and then you can share with UiPath team, or you can look at those to understand what went wrong. Other thing I wanted to highlight here is you will be also able to see, if there are some issues happening in a UiPath Studio in a much detailed level. So say for example, it was, look at this. This is the one common exception that I was explaining you, right? Object reference not set to instance of object. This usually happens when something is not assigned or there is some issue. So you should be able to understand more detail in this log file. Got it? All right. So let's quickly move to the next part. Debugging techniques, right? Although I have explained you these things prior, but let's quickly look at how we should be able to set these settings. So all you need to do is click on the debug, step into, step over, and step out. That's basically if you need to go activity by activity in a child process, or you need to run that entire workflow in a one go, for that step into and step over is used. And if you are inside a workflow at fifth number of activity and you want to come out from that entire workflow, you can click step out. Then we have retry, ignore, and restart. Sometime when you are running a code, and if it is not able to read the file or something, you should be able to retry that particular step. So that's how it can be used. Ignore is when you know that exception, this kind of issue will happen and you want that to be ignored. So the moment it will happen, you should be able to click on ignore. And the moment you click on restart, it will start running from first point. So that's the use of these three. Then we have a focus button. So it will highlight where the bot is currently running. So it will highlight you, right? Then we have breakpoint. I already explained. If you want to stop your bot for the moment, to identify what are the variables values are there, uh, are they been assigned or not, what value it contains, what are the immediately values, and all those kind of stuff, you should be able to set the breakpoint. Slow step, I explained you a couple of minutes back. You should be able to control the execution speed when it's running in a debug mode. When you are running in a run mode, you won't be able to control it, right? From the so here you have 4 speed setting, 1x to 4x, using which you should be able to control the debug speed. Then execution trail is basically nothing but it gives you which activities is being called after which. So you should be able to see the details. When you run it, you should be able to see which activity has executed which child activity. Who is the calling object? So basically it uses a concept of program counter, and it takes care of which activity has called which activity, right? And then we have this highlight element. I explained you, when you run in a debug mode, it will highlight the element which is currently being taken care by UiPath, right? When you click on the log activity, it will log every activity, right? Every activity, instead of what is the log message. So whether you have written a log message or not, it will log all the activity, it will execute it. So by default setting it would be. And then we have picture in picture. Yeah.
1 second, sorry for interrupting you. This log activities now, we can run it in debug mode only, no?
Yes.
Can't run,
Yes, in debug mode only. Yes, in debug mode only.
Okay, Satish.
Because if you put this into production, your production database will fill in a one day, man. It's too heavy logging. It logs every instance of activity execution. I'll showcase you. So for this, I need to open another project, because let's take example of one that we have used today.
Satish,
Yeah.
yeah. solution will be in production environment, no? Pod will be running the process in production environment, but we want to run the process in this verbose mode. Then how will we run that? How do we open
No, you
UiPath
won't be.
Studio?
See, in production, you don't have a software called UiPath Studio. In production, you have only a software which is UiPath Runtime.
Assistant.
Yeah, UiPath Agent, right? So you won't be able to. You don't have capability. So this will be the software. Let me launch it. So this is the software you will have in your production environment, and from there the bot it will be running either manually by clicking here or from scheduled from the orchestrator. So when you run from here, you don't have those options, right?
Okay. But this log activities and purpose is only for running it in developer environment.
That's for developer. So usually what we follow approach is, if something fails, right? It's not a wise decision to experiment something in production, right? So what you need to do is, you need to create a copy of data if things it's a data issue, or if it is an application issue. What you can do is, you can ask your developer to run that code into a development environment pointing to the development instance of application, right? Not directly into the production.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So what I was explaining is this, this log activity. So let's look at this example again. Okay. And this time what I'll do, I'll put everything, and let me try if picture in picture works. Sometimes it doesn't work, so I do not want it to experiment. All right. Now slow speed I have already shown, so I'm not going to showcase you again. I just want to increase the width of this so that you should be able to see the details. So let's run it. Internet Explorer is not open, so we'll run it from here. So when you try to run in picture mode, screen like this.
Satish.
Yeah. Sorry. So when you try to run that in a picture mode, a window like this will come and it will ask for you for the credential. And that's the reason I was saying you, sometime it doesn't work. It's even if I provide the password, it will ask me for the password again and again. So this is a bug into the PIP mode. So UiPath is still fixing it. So I'll not do this. Instead, what I'll do, I'll run without PIP mode. Okay. So I have turned off the PIP, and now what I'll run without PIP. Look at these. Look at these. These are the log messages we have not put into, right? So basically, it's printing everything that bot is doing. Main is executing, recording sequence is executing, build data table is executing, build data table closed, while executing, visual basic boolean executing. So it will print everything that UiPath is doing, right? And this will be too much information. And this happens when you enable this log activity. Sometimes it is useful. Reason being, you need to understand control is going from where to where. But most of the time it is not useful for us. Right? Log message executing, log message closed, message. So not many. And ultimately they will be stored in database, right? So it will be filling your database too fast. So even in the development environment, it advises not to use it multiple times, because otherwise dev database will be filled. And then you need to involve infrastructure guys to clean that up. Otherwise you won't be able to run any studio project as well. Right? So if you see the output here, see the log. We don't need these many logs, right? And you should be able to download it, output, put into desktop. So it should be like this one, right? All right, so this is I wanted to explain, and now we move to the next point.
Harish, these activities also move to orchestrator as well. Orchestrator work.
No, this will not move to orchestrator log because by default they are printed into verbose mode, and anything which is higher than information or info logs, they will only go. So you should be able to change this setting. By default setting is info. If you want only error message to go, so default setting you can change, right? But by default, any log which is info or higher. So basically they have a numeric number assigned 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Some programming languages say 0 as a critical, some programming language say 0 as a debug. I don't know exact how it is used in UiPath. And in the configuration, you configure it. Any log message having log severity greater than 3 should go into the orchestrator. So that's how it is defined, right? 3 is the info. Okay.
Yes, so the configuration we can make in UiPath agent only, right?
You can make that configuration at multiple location, right? So one thing that you can do is you can make that configuration into the orchestrator. So let me showcase you. So what you can do is you can go to the process, user, and the bot. So if you go here, and if you go here, you see this logging information labels. So you should be able to change it.
Yes, sir.
Right? So for some bot,
this is one.
Yeah. Okay. But by default, it will be info. That for sure. Okay. All right. So with this, we have completed the detailed session on UiPath loggings. Okay. And I have already explained you all the techniques for logging and everything. So now we need to discuss the state machine and RE frameworks. So that we can do in a post lunch session, right? Will that be okay for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or do you want to continue? I mean, it will not be complete.
Yes.
It will not be completed in 30 minutes. So that's the reason I wanted to take a break, and let's come back on 1:30. Will that help for everybody?
I think in that scenario, like we'll take 10 minutes break and we'll continue with this. If it is okay.
I mean, it's up to you guys. Anyways, I have blocked my calendar till 2:30. So I'm available for you guys till 2:30. If you want to continue, I can continue. Let's take a 5-10 minutes break. If that okay.
Yeah, let's break for 5-10 minutes and we'll catch up again.
Yeah, other guys, please speak up now.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a collective decision. It should not be somebody imposing others, right?
Yes, yes. Because if someone wants to, someone has plan for lunch or something.
Yeah.
Please let everyone know. Antarish, Chiranjeevi, Anand. Oh, fine with me.
Okay, so in that case, let's connect that. Let's connect after 10 minutes. If you want to drop, you can drop. Otherwise, I'll resume from here. So I'll stop recording, and then we can continue it from here. Okay.
We can continue, sir.